All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the kickoff of our Testimony Tailgate for Kids. We are public education advocates who are joined by people with concerns about healthcare, transportation, public safety, farms, the environment, and many other issues that matter to all of us here in Wisconsin. And we are gathering inside, because it's raining outside where our bus is, to send a clear message to decision makers in Wisconsin and to the people in our communities. We want to make sure that the people who are here today and who are gathering all around Wisconsin to share their concerns about the 2017-2019 biennial budget in the next few weeks are the people whose voices are heard the loudest and respected the most. Because the people who are showing up and taking times out of their work days and out of their busy lives are the people who care the most and who know the most about the impacts that this budget has in the everyday lives that we live in our communities. And we, as public education advocates, want to stand together at this very first event and say, please put kids first in funding this budget. Think about the impacts that this budget has on our communities and the livelihood of all of us where we live. We need to make choices in this budget that will benefit all of our children. The 860,000 children attending Wisconsin public schools desperately need a minimum $200 increase proposed by the governor, and Wisconsin communities have called for a $300 per student increase to the revenue limit to make sure that these schools have the resources that they need for every student to succeed. We want to ensure thriving communities everywhere we look, and we're calling on you to raise your voice to join us in sending this message loud and clear to legislators, and let your community know what issues matter to you by speaking out on the budget and making sure your voice is heard. We've invited several of our friends from this region to join us here at the Platteville public hearing, and these include educators, parents, retired educators, and others who have very serious concerns about the future of our state and what our students need for fully and fairly funded schools. First, we have Erin O'Connor, who is an educator in La Crosse. Then Gail Switchroth, Platteville parent and school board candidate. Then we will hear from John Havlicek, a La Crosse educator, and Sheila Plotkin, a retired Milwaukee Public Schools teacher who now lives in McFarland. So we're going to start with Erin's remarks. Thank you, Erin.
Hello, I'm a high school teacher, and I'm here to speak today because I believe that the inequality that exists in public education is a human rights issue. America is built on the dream that everyone has an equal shot at success, regardless of the fortuitous circumstance of birth or socioeconomic status. Inequality in public education is in direct contradiction with this statement. Some students receive a strong foundation in education and some do not. Some students realize their true ability and some do not. Some students follow their dreams and some are never even given the opportunity to believe in themselves. I had a student last year who was going down a bad path. As a freshman in high school, he was skipping classes constantly and even getting in trouble with the law. I tried calling home to contact his family and I never heard back once. I found that this student had a very broken home life and was basically on his own as a 15-year-old. I decided to try to form a relationship with him and started attending the local Boys and Girls Club in the community, hanging out and playing basketball with the teens. The more I went to the Boys and Girls Club, the more the students started coming to class and actually participating on assignments, doing well. He ended up passing my class with a B and receiving the highest grade on the final exam. He has since gotten himself a job and even won Student of the Month this year. He no longer wanted to pursue a life making money off of illegal activities, but instead wanted to find success from his true capability, and this happened because he was able to believe in himself. Taking this further, he said that it was myself and other teachers that allowed him to find this belief in himself. He now has goals to become a math teacher. If this student did not have access to high-quality public education, he would have remained lost. He turned his life around because he had access to high-quality public education. This is why funding the voucher system is a disgrace to the American ideal. Vouchers siphon money from an already underfunded system and create a two-tier educational system in the belief that a limited few will benefit. In some cases, the few are families who can already afford the additional fees associated with private schools. All students deserve access to high-quality public education. It's a human rights issue, and I want to see the voucher program phased out entirely and scaffolded per-pupil funding to target school districts that need support the most. This will allow true progress to happen in public education and put us on a path towards true equality in this nation. Thank you.
Thanks, Erin. Next, we have Gail Schwitzroth, a Platteville parent and school board candidate.
Thank you, Heather. My name is Gail Schwickrath. I am a 12-year resident of Platteville, Wisconsin. I have a 14-year-old who attends Platteville Middle School and will be attending the high school next year. I am running for Platteville School Board this year, and I am a fierce advocate for public education. This year, our school district will see a budget deficit of nearly $500,000 due to decreasing enrollment and increasing insurance costs. We are now facing the likelihood of not renewing 5 educator contracts, including one of our special education teachers, a necessary position for a student population that needs greater support. I understand the need to balance budgets. I understand the need to provide fair distributions. I understand the idea behind fewer kids means needing fewer teachers. But there is a sweet spot that exists where a small decrease in enrollment for rural schools like ours leads to a significant decrease in educators that drops below a responsible threshold where we can keep our class numbers low enough to provide quality education that our kids deserve. Platteville schools are at a difficult point right now where classes are approximately 100 students. Going from 4 sections at 25 students per section per grade level to 5 sections of 20 students at these important early elementary education levels is immeasurably beneficial to students. No school should ever have to fight to keep their heads barely above this threshold. Our kids deserve a quality education and a community and government that supports that unwaveringly. Our kids' education should be treated as a priority, not as a second thought, not as a burden, and certainly not as a financial drain. We can't afford to invest in thriving communities, and we owe it to our kids to do so. Wisconsin communities are calling for a minimum of $300 per pupil increase to the revenue limit in spendable aid. This is $100 more per pupil than the current budget proposal allows. An additional $100 per student in Platteville would mean an additional $150,000 for our schools. This is the approximate cost of 2 full-time teachers with benefits, replacing 2 of the 5 teachers that are facing non-renewal this year. It would mean replacing the special education teacher that was reduced. This is not a would-like-to-have position. This is an essential resource to our district in the face of a 10-year freeze on special education funding. It would mean providing a small increase for teachers and support staff so that we as a district can remain competitive and able to attract and maintain a quality staff for our students. We are nothing without our healthy children and healthy communities. We can afford to invest in thriving communities, and we owe it to our kids to do so. I urge you to register today to speak on behalf of our public education. This is your time for your voice to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. We're next going to hear from John Havlicek, a lacrosse educator.
Hello. I'm here today to talk about the educational aspects of the budget. This budget is an immoral document. 50 years ago, Martin Luther King said that a budget is a moral document and it has to support our civil rights. This budget offends morality. Anything that funnels taxpayer dollars into privatization, into private charters or vouchers hurts the very people that it should be supporting. Privatization and vouchers are based on false choice. They're red herrings. They don't help students. They don't help schools. When students take a voucher and leave the public school, that public school is defunded. When they take it to the private school, that private school is enriched with no additional costs. Private schools choose their students. It's not parent choice. They choose their students. So when those students don't get the support they need and they end up back in the public schools, the private schools keep the funding. That is immoral. This budget needs to fully fund public school students and public schools because we educate every student. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And now we'll hear from Sheila Plotkin, a retired educator from McFarland.
Good morning. I want to talk about the future of our children, the beauty of common ground, and the morality of public education. Wisconsin has always invested in our children's futures. With our taxes, we built a system of public education second to none. We brought education to the rural child, the urban child, to every child. We said that no matter who you are or where you're born, you have a right to education. We enshrined that right to a free and equal education in our state constitution. We built a great state university that enriched not only those who attended, but via the Wisconsin idea, every Wisconsin citizen. Public education reflected our common aspirations. Its roots were planted in common ground. From those roots emerged our great middle class and the uniquely Wisconsin version of the American dream. We expanded that dream for our children and our grandchildren. Our communities thrived, gradually making room for those left behind, slowly but steadily expanding our common ground to include minorities and children with special needs. We chose to invest in our children's future. We chose to cultivate our common ground. We chose to fully support public education. Those were moral choices. They still are. I'm here to speak on behalf of the hundreds of deaf children I had the joy of knowing during my 28 years in Milwaukee Public Schools. They were the beneficiaries of the moral choice made by those who would never know them, but who understood the importance of investing in the future of all of our children. Today, I will ask these legislators to once again plant in our common ground by restoring full funding to our public schools. I will ask them to do what their predecessors have always done. I will ask them to invest in the future of our children. That is the moral choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila, and to all of our speakers today, and to all of you who took the time out of your days and your lives to come make these important statements and standing up for our communities. We know that building budgets are about making choices, but we also know that we can't choose to leave our children behind. We can't choose, again, to continue the path of defunding our public schools and putting the future of our communities and our children in jeopardy. We're calling on legislators to make the right choice, to stand up for kids, to give our schools the $300 per pupil funding they need, and to make sure that that final budget includes a 30% reimbursement to special education funding, which has been frozen for a full decade, to include the much-needed mental health resources and resources for rural schools that were included in the governor's budget. And we're calling on them to make the choice to stand up for thriving communities. We do not have to choose between good roads and good schools in Wisconsin. We do not have to choose whether we're going to help our urban or our rural students. We do not have to choose between health care and farms. We can afford to fund all of these things, and we demand that that's what our tax dollars be used for. We demand an investment in the public good, and we call on everyone who agrees with this vision for a better Wisconsin to stand up and join us, to go public with your stories and your concerns, and to speak out at a Joint Finance Committee hearing in the coming weeks, or by sending your written or video testimony to the committee. You can find all the resources you need at wisconsonnetwork.org, and you can share your stories on social media using hashtags GoPublic and WIBudget2017. Thank you for taking the time from your life to speak out for our kids and communities. Let's build a better Wisconsin together.
Go Public!